Hello, everyone. Welcome to DIGA615. This is our data acquisition and location of things course. The purpose of this video right here is to step you through the basics of the syllabus. And before we go any further, to please note that there'll be some welcome videos introduced each week under the overview of each week in each one of the modules going forward. But to that end, the purpose of this video, as I mentioned, is to take you through and step you through the syllabus. So let's go ahead and do that. In launching into the course, there'll be three important tabs. The first one that I like to reference is the Syllabus tab, the Modules tab, and your Announcements tab. Please take a look at that. But let's go ahead and explore the syllabus here. Inside of the Syllabus tab in Canvas, you'll notice that there's a short About course. We'll go ahead and take a look at that, but please feel free to download or open up our DIGA615 syllabus, and then we'll step you through that. So please feel free to pause the recording until you have this open, or simply just watch what is to come, and we'll all be okay. So to that end, I have our syllabus loaded up here for us to go through, and this course is really one of a general field data collection course. It's typically regarded as usually one of people's most favorite courses because it involves data collection with our devices or phones and otherwise field gear. And this year is a little bit different though, because we're exclusively remote. So we'll talk about some options and how we might want to handle those online labs week to week. But nevertheless, we'll still get the experience of working with the data, which is the lion's share of the important aspects of this course. All right, this is a 3-credit course. This will be blended virtually online. This will be running from the early part of March through about that week of April 25th. You'll also notice that we have several in-class dates provided here. First one being in our week 2, which would be March 9th from 5 to 10. And then you'll notice that we have a Saturday period. And you would have seen, you may have seen this in the announcement, whereby this is a Saturday period. And this was usually, historically speaking, reserved for us to go out and collect data during the day on that Saturday for our EDM or total station surveying lab, topographic mapping. So what we did in that lab. And so we could talk about blending this period on a different day if that works better for people, or we can simply leave it as a virtualized Saturday session and just meet as we have it too. So we'll talk about this moving forward. Either is okay with me. And then we'll notice that we have our third virtual period on the 6th. You'll notice in the announcement regarding the April 6th date, if I just come back here for a minute to pull up that announcement, this was a scheduling notation error for the course, and it's fine. We'll still plan on meeting for that day, but in the announcement, I referenced that period right here. So that would be our week 6. That is listed as a virtual in-person meeting. Usually that period is best reserved for our week 7, but as I mentioned, something got a little bit messed up in the scheduling. So not a problem either way. We'll just plan on offering 2 virtual face-to-face sessions that period, and you can attend those as you wish. But just to make sure that people were aware of that we will plan on offering both of those periods, week 6 and 7, in a virtualized setting for you. So no problem with that. All right. Otherwise, we'll try to get on maybe a regular basis for some office hours once we get the course moving. We might be able to handle those on Tuesday evenings for a couple hours, with some sign up availability options and things like that. But otherwise, let's take a look at the course description. So as noted a little earlier, this class is all about data collection for the most part, or at least trying to interpret data that's being collected. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but also a lot of really what I call experiential learning opportunities in here too. In other words, when something doesn't go well when we're collecting our own data, we can see it immediately. We may not exactly know where that problem originated. However, we know that there was a problem because the data doesn't really look like it should for us. That's why this is such a valuable course, is that when we're out collecting data, we're able to see what we're observing and then what we're trying to create. So not really necessarily in an augmented reality fashion, but this provides an opportunity for us to see where problems may have been introduced into our data rather than just going and downloading data off the internet somewhere and saying, okay, this data is great. So this is that valuable learning piece in the course, and it's, or in the program rather, but also it fits nicely into the course here. So we'll be working with all sorts of things from GPS, which is a main constituent of the course, but also working with parcel data and public land survey systems and things like that in our week one, and getting into the increasing or the evolving world of IoT or Internet of Things. And so we'll have a couple of periods whereby we're looking for data collection. Maybe it's off of devices or cars or home systems or whatever you might have. And so just to see what else is out there, right now, I think there's a lot of cool IoT things there, but we're trying to make sense out of them right now. There's a lot of data being generated. So start to put your thinking caps on, and what things might you have that is related to IoT floating around out there in space. All right. So a lot of the remainder of the course will help you in really, I think, in intangible ways of thinking about, okay, data collection. How does it exist? Well, it exists when we have a purpose for which to collect that data. So we'll be thinking a lot about workflow from origination to what is our plan, and then building a workflow that's suitable to acquire the data that we need for that specific plan. So we'll be calling out those aspects throughout our 8 weeks here together. So be thinking of that as well, of how we think, how we refine our workflow. All right, the SLOs, or student learning objectives, are provided there, and creating suitable data, thinking about approaches for how we can enable or best protect data validation. So in other words, is our data measuring what it's intended to measure when we collect it? And then applying best practice. So we're going to learn about different things that are better suited for certain applications than of others. And again, this is experiential learning as well. So you'll be able to see a lot of other opportunities for this too. And then of course, we'll have different access to some technologies here. This year being a little bit different because we won't obviously be able to get together for our big group data collection activities. So we'll be have to use maybe last year's data or year prior data for that. So we'll do our best with access to that technology. So, and then how we communicate with graphics and visuals and thinking through storytelling. How are we going to communicate our findings for people with different technical backgrounds? So that's also fun. You'll notice here our Canvas access link is provided here. For some of you, Canvas is not a new learning platform, as you've been immersed into that already. But for others, Canvas might be a new system. In the past, can't even remember how long we've been using Blackboard, which is another learning management software or system. And Canvas, I've found so far, is a little bit more user-friendly, not quite as clunky, and a little bit more free-flowing, which is nice and has some cool built-in utilities and functions from a teaching perspective, but also from a learning perspective as well. So nevertheless, you'll be able to access your Canvas platform here by clicking on smu.instructure.com. And this is what that will look like for you when you log in to your dashboard at smu.instructure.com. You'll see a number of published courses. And for me, I have a handful of them out there that I'm involved with in some capacity along the way here. But at least for this term, for many of you, you will see our data acquisition and location of things, our DIGA615 course provided right here for you. So go ahead and click on this course to gain access to our course right here. And then we're under the syllabus tab there. So the others, of course, being the modules and the announcements tab are really our three most important things. But we'll go ahead and take a look at that a little bit more in detail here in a few more minutes. There's no recorded textbook for the course. However, we'll be using a lot of handouts, board photos, videos that we've made in past years to account for remote learning this year or this spring, and be providing those to the best we can in Canvas. So we'll have to know that in mind, everybody. So keep that in mind, you know, that we're taking a field course and trying to bundle that up into a virtualized classroom for you to the best that we can. So I'm asking that, you know, if you're struggling along the way, please let me know. You know, we're doing the best that we can to sort of replicate reality in a digital sense for at least what we have right now. So please know that going in, and we're doing the best we can to help you out with that. So let's talk briefly about some of our weeks coming up. This week, we're getting into really just a overview of reference frameworks. So keep in mind that you'll be seeing a fair amount of this material in other courses. I mean, maybe not the GPS and going on and collecting the actual data, but a lot of the content you'll be seeing in other courses, like dealing with projections and, you know, what is a geographic coordinate system, and how we're working with shapefiles and feature classes and you know, all that types of thing. You know, we're going to see that again. So, but the idea for this course is we're not as focused on the I would call it the geospatial aspects of learning, you know, ArcGIS Desktop or learning ArcGIS Pro or learning all these other cool things. You know, we're mainly focusing on data collection devices and utilities, from our phones to GPS units and things like that, and where we can find sentiment analysis on social media and things like that. We're interested in harnessing that data to understand it, then use sort of the various geospatial aspects or other visualization tools and software platforms that we'll be introducing in the course to understand that. So do keep in mind that our focus is on the data, collecting the data, thinking through the data, and asking questions about the data. And so nevertheless, we'll have different chunks of data that are moving throughout the course. And from a technical standpoint, you will see that each week will have really different material for the most part. But once we get into week 2 and 3 and beyond that, you'll start to see the data sort of scaffold upward, meaning a lot of the things that we're doing in each one of those weeks are building upon each other. Part of that is for a reason. One, that a lot of the content, and I know we talk about this in other courses too, but it's like a slinky, that it sort of adapts and morphs from one week to the other. But the second reason this isn't, probably the most important reason this is important, is because it allows us to first get immersed into something, and we're going to learn, and we're going to fail, and we're going to struggle on some things, but we're going to come back in weeks, let's say 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we'll already be able to know what to do because we've been through that hoop before in prior weeks. So we're building on that experience. And that's what's really key to understanding data and understanding what questions to ask of the data, is having that experience in working with it. So you'll see that scaffolding effect from weeks 2, 3, 4, all the way up through the end of the course. But in week 2 is typically a face-to-face session where we're conducting some field mapping. And I have to give this a little bit more thought yet as to what this actual lab might look like, but the general consensus is, if possible, you may be able to conduct a lab of your own choice for this. And otherwise, I'll be providing you with data from a last year's class or a prior year's course that you can map and follow along with some of our discussion materials, you know, things that I talk about in the classroom materials. So to that end, I will be using more than likely a lot of content from last year, just because it helped build upon the labs that we were doing in class. So if you're using that data, there's supplementing content or supplemental content to reinforce that material. So do look for that, but I'm really thinking that some of these labs we will be able to use on your own, that if that interests you in using your smartphone, for instance, you know, we'll be going rogue a little bit in that. You know, I won't be able to tell you exactly what might be wrong, but I'll certainly be able to try to shepherd you in that process of going out and trailblazing and being creative and trying to use and collect your own data. So that's cool too. I encourage you to do that. If you want to approach a little bit of the safer side with some of the supporting materials that we had up there in years past, that's kind of the safeguard way for you to really check your data and making sure that you're feeling good about what your data is telling you or communicating to you as well. So look for more on this to come in weeks 2, 3, and 4, obviously. But I should note in many of these labs, we will be using for sure ArcGIS Desktop. And in other classes, I'm a little bit more comfortable with desktop because I know how it's going to respond. And Pro, we can certainly do things in, and I'm generally comfortable doing some things in Pro as well. So take your pick. It doesn't matter to me. I will try to do the course in both. And in general, I just know where things go wrong in desktop. In Pro, sometimes I'm not quite there yet. And the software is maturing on that side as well. So pick your choice. Doesn't matter. I'll do my best to provide resources in either capacity for you on that. But we might see you referencing both of them. That's fine, moving forward as well. So probably the last year we'll do that until Pro gets a little bit more mature in a year or so. But nevertheless, we'll have a PACE and Compass lab, and this will involve us going out and determining our pace. What's our pace? When we take a step, how far is that? And then I think we could probably use a compass on our phone to help go out and take some points, maybe around your backyard or at a park or something like that. And of course, in our lab experience, when we had that at our Minneapolis campus there, all these points were defined. And I'll let you take a look at those videos when we get into that week and figure out what you might want to do for your lab. But stay tuned for that, more to come. Week 3, we'll be moving into the preamble of GPS. There's an online period. There'll be a short, brief little application paper associated with that. So just getting ourselves thinking about what does it mean for GPS and how does that tie into some of our data collection efforts here in our course. Week 4, you'll notice that this is our virtual face-to-face session, our Saturday period. This was ultimately about going out in the field and conducting a topographic mapping activity. We might have to use our classroom data for this particular lab. I'm not sure that we can do this exclusively on our phone to the level of detail that the purpose of this lab was designed to create. As a result, we may have to use that last year's data or another year's data, but stay tuned on this. If I find something that's a little bit better that we can use, or if you have access to surveying gear that's provides some really accurate elevation data, you can certainly try to, again, trailblaze on your own. But let's keep in touch on this one as we move forward with a plan for week 4. Weeks 5 and 6, we'll be working with a lot of different types of GPS on our phones. So a lot more of the mobile data collection and using our phones and GPS to collect real-time GPS elevation data. So in week 4, we were using our labs to conduct an elevation assessment and to really find levels of detail. In weeks 5 and 6, we're moving into how can we compare our elevation of our GPS on our phone to something to that of LiDAR, which is going to be really, really accurate for elevation. So then we'll compare our surfaces. So it's a really fun example to show limitations in technology and the data output. So more on that stuff to come. Notice in week 6, this was an error in the schedule, but we'll still plan to meet as listed virtually and do our best to talk through some of our materials that week as well. So week 7, we'll be back for that, our typically face-to-face session there in a virtual context on April 13th, whereby we will have hopefully some folks from either Frontier Precision or some of our other long-standing departmental, I call them friends over the course of time, come in to talk with us about drones and drone data acquisition. So we'll have some cool things in store for you there as well. And then that takes us into week 8, where we'll get a chance to do some sentiment analysis, really the kind of the IoT or media-based analysis, whereby if you've ever wondered about how people are able to understand the sentiment of who's going to, we just not too long ago got done with the Super Bowl. I'll probably reference this too, but who are pulling for what teams from different parts of the nation during the Super Bowl. So how can we look at different location enabled tweets, and whether it's Twitter or Instagram or these other Facebook or what have you, sentiments that's being attached to preferences around maybe the nation or around the world gives us an idea of real-time data and how maybe consumers are responding to our products, or where are these people and how are they reacting or how are they responding. So it allows us to take a look at something that we've maybe never really thought about a lot before, and that's looking at these geo-enabled data sets that are out there that are real time, and how can we make some sense out of them. It's a pretty crazy environment, but it's something good that we'll go through together. So otherwise, more on the schedules and things like that to come. Synopsis of assignments, and these are pretty well self-explanatory. Take a look at them. For our online periods, we'll have several quizzes. We have maybe 5 of them there. We're in weeks 1, 3, 5, 6, and 8. And then we'll have a couple of application activities, which are little application activity assignments, labs, usually some activity every week. So there'll be 8 of those, 10 points apiece. And then a final project, which for most people, they have a lot of fun with this. This is going out and collecting some field data and talking about it. What worked well, what didn't work well. And I want people to be creative with this. If a project doesn't work well as you intend, you're in your mind, you're developing a workflow and it doesn't work, that's great. Just talk about it. Tell us what it is that you're learning about that. So more information on that will come later in our upcoming weeks. We'll also have a final exam. You'll notice here that we have a lab practical. This term, we may not, or we will not be able to do a lab practical with you, but that's okay. I'll try to set up something that enables us to work around that we can use. So look for more details on that as well to come. And so some general expectations, we may be using Google Drive. And for those of you who have been through class with me in the past, we've used our Google Drive a lot. And for instance, I'll maybe set up a shared Google Drive with you, DIGA615 or something like that. And I'll share that with you, in which case, if I may need to share some data with you out from prior classes or something like that for our labs, this might be a really good vehicle for us to do that. So use of Google Docs, Google Drive, I will say expect that, and look for some shared folders to come on that as we roll through each week and into the rest of the course. As noted, we'll be using Pro and desktop. A lot of the material that you might find will reference desktop. However, it doesn't mean you need to do that. You should be able to do the labs equally as well in Pro where we need. And where possible, I do encourage people to work with each other. I know in a remote learning environment, this can be a little bit difficult. However, people have done this very successfully in other courses, whereby you may want to set up a Google Meet or something like that, which is available in your Google Suite and your email. Other times people have set up shared Google Drive folders and have been working collaboratively in assignments and in final projects and things like that. So it can be a really good utility to enhance your learning. So I 100% embrace that for you to co-op up on assignments and get a chance to work with each other in various ways. So, if you are working on a group assignment or something like that, I would say maybe 2 to 3 people is a good number. If we get beyond 3, it's a little bit tougher to manage. And then there's always usually 1 or 2 people kind of steering the group and the 3rd or the 4th person kind of sitting in the wayside. So if you do work with someone on this, I would say 3 is more than likely a top end limit. Usually groups of 2 or teams of 2 are pretty good if you want to partner up on homework assignments. So I definitely encourage you to do that. So no problem on that. Okay, not too worried about, this syllabus was geared for the classroom environment, and so we're not extremely worried about that. Everybody has busy lives right now, and being that most of the course is online, you know your schedules, you know what you need to do. If you can't get access to something or there's a question, just simply reach out, send me a note, and we'll set up a session to get together virtually or another means to make the material more accessible or help you to resolve your questions. So not too worried about this, but nevertheless, just take note of what we have out here. So a breakdown of the overall grading performance grading policies are provided. They all should be listed there for you, the grading scale as well. So grades will come. I want to definitely encourage you to create and not be penalized for something that you may deem as a failure. I look at these things as, quite honestly, creative opportunities. So with that being said in here, I don't know if I had that listed out, but I do definitely recommend if something doesn't go right in an assignment, turn it in, talk about what maybe didn't go well and redo it if you want to, but you're not going to be penalized for something that you gave a good effort on and it didn't maybe work out the way you had intended it to, so long as you had a plan for that. That doesn't mean turning something in late and it's just incomplete. It means that you went through a good effort and something didn't go quite right, it's not right, but that's okay. That's a learning moment. We talk about that experiential learning. That's what we're talking about. So you're not going to get penalized for bad things. You can go back and turn it in later if you wish, or turn it in afterwards after you get some feedback. Anyone that has any questions about access services or things like that can make your learning more rewarding or in an accommodating fashion, please well, you can certainly talk to me about it too, but otherwise contact Laura Lanning or the other folks at our access services here with that the email address as soon as you can to get those things set up. And again, you can reach out to me. I'll probably refer you to Laura or some of our other folks there just to make sure those requests are documented and available for you with all resources and options available. All right, some of the other policies are listed on the website and of course in our Canvas platform for our main university policies and whatnot. And there also is a Writing Center link in Canvas that we can take a look at right here as well, with the Writing Center, instructional technology needs, library services, which are digitally available to you. I encourage you to use all of them. We have our access services here as well. Inside of our modules tab, you'll notice that we'll have our weeks to week rolled out every week, Tuesday, by about 5 p.m. there. And this just helps us to keep on a nice schedule. Since we meet on Tuesdays, we'll just keep our periods Tuesday to Tuesday. And you'll notice that our week one will be available here shortly, but there are a couple of important tabs to look at right away that you should see available to you. General tech support, course resources, of course, the syllabus, and then our departmental handbook that you can see there from last fall, as well as the main university handbook. So otherwise, that material is available to you. Take a look at those. And as always, please let me know if I can reach out to help you. The goal of where I'm at here is to make sure that you are enjoying the course and having a good time with it. It may not always seem like that if we're having problems with our data or something just doesn't plain old work the way that we thought it would. I'm saying again as a reminder, embrace those opportunities. That's going to happen, but that's the purpose of this course as well. And when things don't work, our apps don't work on our phone to collect data, or there's questions or concerns with the data we collect, we can talk about them. And to know that there are going to be problems, so do embrace that as the experiential learning piece of the course. Not going to get penalized for them, but we want to sort of sink our teeth into them and understand why those things might be happening. So with that, have fun, be positive in the course, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon here in week 2. All right, have a great week, everybody, and a good rest of the course for that matter. See you soon.